In today's video, we're going to be answering two of the most important questions in crypto right now. Firstly, when is Bitcoin going to top for this cycle? I took a look through the data and I found some pretty amazing research which indicates an exact date that Bitcoin could potentially top. And I'm going to share that with you and my analysis to hopefully help you better prepare your entries and exits in this bull run. The second question, which I'm going to answer in today's video, and I'm sure it's one that you all want to know, is when is true alt season going to kick off? Obviously, altcoins have been performing well, but if you do look at the Bitcoin chart and the Bitcoin dominance chart, you can see that Bitcoin has been outpacing altcoins significantly. Dominance is still on the rise. So we still don't have the true makings of alt season yet. When is that going to happen? Well, I also have a framework in mind that I believe is going to create a massive alt season. And there's a certain set of dates that I am eyeing for that to occur. And today's video is going to give you the analysis behind those dates. So it's going to be a very practical show, a shorter show, and basically taking a look at how you can navigate this crypto cycle. And I think it's going to be really, really high impact for everyone, especially new retail coming into the market, to better understand where we currently sit, especially those that weren't around in the last couple of cycles and don't have as strong of a feeling for the timing of these cycles, which is obviously a super important part of the market. In crypto, timing is everything, unlike other markets, because we go through such boom and bust cycles relative to other global markets. Timing is definitely an important part of portfolio management and an important part of crypto trading that you need to nail. So hopefully this video helps you do that. If you do enjoy analytical looks at the market like this, if you enjoy deep dives, altcoin alpha, etc., make sure you subscribe to the channel and click that notification bell, because I'm uploading twice a day right now to give you the best alpha in crypto. In the mornings, I'm doing more of a market focus / analytical data driven look at the market, which is today's video. And then later in the day, I'm going to be uploading a little bit more of an altcoin focused video. So that's basically how I'm running the channel right now. Market in the mornings and then altcoins later in the day, pretty much. And hopefully I hold you in really, really good stead to absolutely smash the next leg of the cycle. Spoiler alert, things are about to heat up and I'm going to show you the data behind why. So without further ado, let's get into the two questions. When will Bitcoin top and when will the real alt season begin? Let's get into it. Firstly, on the Bitcoin side of things, when could Bitcoin top for the cycle? Well, the first thing we got to understand is, where is Bitcoin from a cycle perspective time-wise? So the most intriguing data point right now when I actually started digging into this data on CryptoQuant was just how similar Bitcoin's price action is this cycle compared to the past 3 bull runs. So this chart in front of you highlights the Bitcoin price performance from the halving. And as you can see below on the X axis here, you can see the days from the halving until the end of the cycle. So you've got quadrant 1, 2, 3, and 4. You can see here, the 2012, 2016, 2020, and 2024 cycles have been following a very similar playbook. 2020 was the most explosive cycle in terms of its performance during the final quarter, but all of the Bitcoin cycles so far have had the most expansionary growth during that phase. I guess the only anomaly is maybe 2012, which had a really, really strong run up and then a massive dip, and then the bull run continued beyond that. But I do find the data really interesting. This is done on an index, by the way, which is percentage performance. So it's not price performance, in order to actually scale all of these cycles to be on a level playing field. So percentage-wise, Bitcoin in 2012 had a big run during this second quarter. But we can pretty much all agree that apart from that slight anomaly, all of these cycles look very similar in terms of their price action. So what really stood out to me is the fact, and you can see where we are right now, it's highlighted in red, just how similar all these cycles are. So there's nothing to suggest so far. Of course, there's different macro conditions each cycle, and each cycle rhymes, they don't repeat. Like even on the charts here, you can see slight deviations. Like for example, in the 2024 cycle, we had a very strong rally pre-halving and slightly after the halving. Then we had a lull, whilst other cycles had significant upticks like 2016 and 2012. But the general fabric rhymes across all of the cycles, and there's nothing majorly concerning to suggest that the final phase is going to play out any differently this cycle versus previous cycles. In fact, the similarities are astounding when you look at the charts. So extrapolating this a little bit, you can expect further upside and the most explosive upside in the final phase of the bull run, which we are now technically in terms of time frame from the halving until when we've had previous cycle tops. We're going to get into the exact timeline in just a minute here. This data is also evidenced via this chart that Rect Capital posted, and he basically divides cycles up into three waves. You have your expansionary wave, you have your bearish wave, so your compression range, then you have another expansionary / accumulation phase, which happens pre-halving. Then you have your final move, which happens in the third phase of the cycle, which is, your green phase. The cycle often, after the halving, starts with this green phase, and it depends how you look at it, from phase 1, 2, and 3, has that major drawdown, accumulation, and then the green phase ticks off again after the halvings. What you can assert from looking at this is that we are in the final phase, or the first phase, if you want to take it from the halving, which is the green zone that you see us in here. And this is the most explosive phase for Bitcoin, where if you map out percentage performance, you could be looking at anywhere from, and we discussed this on yesterday's video, I did some analysis with DocXBT, who's a great trader, a 120K to potentially 160, 170K Bitcoin, just based on price performance. The target would be around 160K if you want to look at other cycles. Now, maybe this time's different, history doesn't repeat, it rhymes, but you can definitely assert that there is more upside purely based on the price action that we are seeing, which honestly is remarkably similar from 2016, 2020, and 2024 again. So time and time again, people fade the cycles, and at points, even I've been skeptical of the cycles, but if you just want a framework for what to roughly expect during the different phases of the market, honestly, they've been remarkably accurate. You can go a little bit further into this data. So in this cycle, Bitcoin broke out to new all-time highs around 205 days after the halving. Historically, Bitcoin tends to rally to new all-time highs around 214 days after the halving. So very similar, actually within 9 days of previous cycle averages. Thus, Bitcoin broke out 9 days earlier, which is at the remaining rate of acceleration in this cycle. So taking the data even further and breaking it down into those phases, we can assert that Bitcoin is on track. Cool. So if it is on track, when could you roughly expect a cycle top? Now, firstly, I want to say that this is obviously going to change, and there are macro factors which can change things slightly. So don't take this as the law. There are exceptions to the rule, and as we get closer to a potential top, things may change. However, I think it's nice to look at this data because it gives you a bit of a rough idea as to when you can expect a top. You're never going to time it exactly, but if you have a rough idea, then you know that in the lead up or the months surrounding that potential date, you can start to go a little more risk off, and in the months prior to that, you can still maintain a bit of a risk on stance towards the market. The fact that you can never time the top means that you need to take a DCA approach, in my opinion, in and out of the market, because those that try and time it exactly, and you might have a price target, like I want Bitcoin to hit 150K and then I'm going to sell everything, that can get you wrecked. Last cycle, I got really wrecked doing this. I remember I had this target of 100K Bitcoin, right? And that was a lot of people's targets at the time. And I was like, look, I'm going to be smart. Everyone thinks Bitcoin's going to 100K. So I'm going to front run that at 80K. And I had this whole plan around how I was going to sell half of my portfolio or 70% of my portfolio when Bitcoin hit 80K, because that was going to be front running the market, right? What happened? Bitcoin hit 70K. So the really savvy investors in the market, they were already starting to go more risk off and ladder out of the market in the lead up to the expected all-time high. So if you see a number that starts floating around, and I think we're going higher than 100K this cycle. I mean, the poly market odds are suggesting a 54% probability of 100K by end of year, let alone next year. But assuming, we're at 100K and everyone's calling for 150, maybe just start laddering out between 100 and 150. Slowly, obviously not trying to go fully risk off, especially because alts really perform in that last bit of the cycle. We're going to discuss that today about when that major alt season could happen. But don't rely on that number. I find when people stick to numbers exactly, that's often when you get burnt. And I actually don't believe in price targets in this market. It's funny because it's a common question I get asked a lot about. Mars, what's your price target for Solana? Mars, what's your price target for Phantom? Mars, what's your price target for this and that? I don't really believe in price targets. I think the best profit-taking strategy is incrementally taking a percentage, a predetermined percentage off the table for every interval increase in price. What do I mean? If you have 50% intervals on a coin, you might say, okay, every time Near Protocol goes up 50%, I take 20% of my bag off the table. Every time Solana goes up 100%, I take half my bag off the table. Obviously for, an asset like Solana or Neo, the intervals will be smaller, like, 30, 40, 50, 60%. For a meme coin, yeah, it might be, I take half my bag out every 2x. But having that plan surrounding a potential all-time high is really important. So what could the potential all-time high be for Bitcoin? And then we'll get into altcoins. Well, the cycle top date prediction changes based on whether you're taking it from the cycle end, so the bottom, the halving, or the all-time high break. But there are some dates that I mapped out on a spreadsheet here to help you. We have the 27th of June, based on the last two cycles bottoms. We have the 13th of May, based on the last three cycles bottoms. So that gives you an idea, either May or June, so mid-year. If you take it from the halving date, that extends the bull run a little bit to August and September. So the 29th of September for the last two cycles, the 8th of August for the last three cycles. Keep in mind that the first cycle I think was very fundamentally different. I actually prefer the 2 cycle length data because there, as I mentioned, there were a lot of outliers that happened in the 2012 cycle because it was just new and there wasn't as much accessibility and the altcoin market didn't really exist. But still, you can average it and take it into account. The numbers are very similar. We're only about a month off. I think the common trend is if you base it on 3 cycles data, the date is slightly earlier. If you base it on the last 2 cycles, the date is slightly later. This is where it gets interesting. The earliest prediction for a cycle top, and this is a scenario you have to be aware of. It actually lines up with the Trump inauguration as well, funnily. If you take the all-time high break to cycle top, so the first break, not the full breakout, so the initial breakout, the top would be the 13th of January. If you take the all-time high break from the last 3 cycles based on a full breakout, the top would be the 23rd of August. The data I am seeing is mostly pointing to, because you have, 6 data points here, 5 out of the 6 are pointing to between May and September. That period, so the Q2, Q3 period of the market. There is an outlier, which is January. Keep that in mind. And we have Trump's inauguration, and I've said this before, I think we see a little bit of a sell-off around then. Buy the rumor, sell the news, but that's not when I expect the top to be, just based on the current available information that we have and the basic pacing of this cycle. I'm more so expecting something more in line with this mid-year prediction. So hopefully that gives you a bit of an idea. And just to summarize things on the Bitcoin front, before we head into alts, if you take it based on cycle length, Q2 2025 could be a potential peak zone for Bitcoin. If you base it on the halving date, Q3 2025 could be a potential top for Bitcoin. And if you base it on the first and the full all-time high breaks, the average is Q3 2025. These are the ranges that you need to keep in mind. So by definition, that means we are not late to the bull run. We're not late to the party, especially for alts. We're going to go through alts in a minute. You'll see we're not late at all. But we're definitely not early. Like early was earlier this year, 2023 accumulation, I would say is early because that's pre-halving. Whenever you go into the post-halving environment, that's the expansionary phase of the market. It's where the market tends to accelerate. And by definition of this acceleration, it means you're not early to the market, but in terms of altcoins, you're certainly not late to the run either, because 80% of the gains each cycle happen in the last 20% time-wise of the cycle. Just keep in mind with Bitcoin, as I mentioned earlier, the timing of the top will become much more apparent closer to the event. So in Q1, based on the price action, we're going to know whether momentum is stalling, and maybe we target one of those earlier targets, like towards the back end of Q1 or Q2, or maybe momentum looks great, market structure looks great, really healthy, not over leveraged, and is growing really nicely. You've had flush outs and it keeps the market sustainable. If that's the case, then you probably start to push that target back to some of the dates that I showed you in August, September potentially. So it's just going to depend on the price action at the time, but it gives you a little bit of a gauge. It gives you a very healthy gauge in my opinion. And obviously if you're subscribed to this channel, I upload twice a day right now. So I'm going to be keeping you updated. If anything changes, like the second we get a Bitcoin breakdown, I'm going to tell you that I'm de-risking. And if you're watching all of these videos, I don't think it's possible for you to be completely left behind. Just keep that in mind if as we continue to go through the cycle, like if you do watch this video now, maybe check in on my channel slightly later in the cycle, right? I don't want you to just watch this video and then just forget about it and then go really risk on and go crazy. Come back here, subscribe so you have a tab on it. Come back here or bookmark this, whatever you need to do. You don't need to watch every video. Of course, I recommend it if you want alpha, but at the very least, in a couple of months, just check back in, especially around January, because I may have seen some signs on the indicators that I use. The money noodle is one of them, as you can see in front of you, which is my general bull market band. This is a custom indicator that's in the Mars High Club. This is still looking really bullish. This is great structure. But what could happen is this could move up over time, right? As it does in order to match the current momentum of Bitcoin. And then you could see like a breakdown starting to happen, and I'm going to update you as soon as that break happens. Obviously, you'll get it in real time if you are part of the Mars High Club and you have the indicator. So I'm going to keep you updated on all of that. There's also high time frame confluence that you can pair with the moving averages in order to get general and the RSIs, de-risk indicators for the macro top and for momentum actually stalling in the cycle, which we'll look at closer to the day. So that's question one answered. You have an idea of timing. Let's assume Bitcoin is set. Let's take the average for a cycle top sometime mid next year. So Q2, Q3. What about altcoins? When will they perform? Assuming Bitcoin peaks mid-year, will altcoins rally now? Are they going to rally after Bitcoin? So later next year? Is the big rally going to front run? Is it going to happen in Q1? Let's now take a deep dive into the altcoin market. And this is where things get really interesting. And I think this is where the biggest profit is for market participants. If you do want a little bit more hand-holding on the altcoin side, in the Mars High Club, I'm posting setups. We have information, alpha, and education happening around the clock. We have 6 full-time contributors plus 2 moderators who are here to help you. Professional traders and analysts that are looking into small caps and are helping you manage risk. So if you do want more hand-holding in terms of alts, we also have 7 live events, so AMAs and tutorial sessions per week. We're absolutely smashing it in that group. I do recommend checking it out because it's going to help you in terms of actually managing your risk this cycle. It's one thing buying alts. The other thing is actually managing those positions, getting good entries and exits. And you can see the profits across the community being absolutely insane recently. The other thing is I give all my alpha calls, so my altcoin gems, especially the low to mid caps, in the Discord first. So you can see the alpha channel here. I want to give you my 2 most recent examples. I called Neural 3 days ago at $6. The price wicked up to $9, but it's now $8.70. So that is a nice roughly 40% gain for members. Then yesterday, I called EMP, which I said I was adding on the dip at $72. If you look at EMP now, it's up 35% to $91. So I'm very active with my new altcoin alpha in the group. Yes, I end up talking about these coins a lot of the time on the YouTube channel later, but if you want the early alpha, and there's actually a meme coin that I'm talking about very, very soon that I'm excited to share because I think it's going to absolutely fly. If you want the early alpha, join the Mars High Club. There's a link in the description below and come be a part of the community. It's an amazing community. And look, there obviously is a monthly price attached, but literally one of those trades over the last 2 days would have made your monthly membership back in a day. So, I mean, at the current rate of the trades that we're hitting, the price of admission, in my opinion, is really low relative to the value in there. And I think based on the reviews and based on all of the feedback that we've gotten, the testimonials, everyone loves being in the group and are all super positive and are finding it really valuable. And that's why our churn rate's also really low. So yeah, let's get into the rest of the video now, which is the altcoin section of the video. So when can altcoins potentially outperform? The first thing I want to assert is, where are we in terms of altcoin season? What is altcoin season firstly? Altcoin season is when you get a continuous period of outperformance on alts versus Bitcoin. So altcoin season is this chart in front of you, basically like a stochastic, like a momentum indicator that gauges when the market is capitalizing, so liquidity is flowing into alts versus Bitcoin. Right now, we aren't in full Bitcoin season like we were earlier in the year, but we aren't in altcoin season either. We're closer to Bitcoin season than we are altcoin season. The real alt season fun doesn't happen until you see something like this. I'll go back to 2021 to show you. This was a period from March to May, so 2 and a bit months, where alts were highly elevated in terms of outperformance. So far this cycle, we only saw like a week in January where that was the case. And even during the March top, we only saw like a little bounce because Bitcoin was still performing so well. So the fun doesn't really begin until you see the upper range of altcoin season starting to be broken. And we often only stay there for a couple of months. So when I talk about alt season, I'm talking about that period in the market where you see alts outperforming on a consistent basis for weeks and for months. And it's not just when it's above this blue line that alts perform. This is also really high, 59, 60, 70. Like in this period, you're already making like 4, 5, 6x gains on alts. And then during this period, that's when you're making, those crazy gains on alts. So we haven't seen it yet. And what's interesting is we've seen a slight uptick from Bitcoin season to altcoin season, but we're only still at 33. And you already have a lot of quality alts outperforming Bitcoin. I'm willing to bet that if you've been following this channel this year and you're capitalized in the coins that I speak a lot about, like especially the meme coins, the AI coins now are performing, really well again, and the infrastructure plays that a lot of us are capitalized in, you're probably already now starting to outperform Bitcoin. Now, there was a strong chance during the downtrend that you underperformed Bitcoin, 100%. But the second that the market started to get some momentum again and Bitcoin upticked, you're probably already beating Bitcoin. So you don't actually need a full-blown altcoin season to make more money in the market than if you were holding Bitcoin. You can still outperform in this environment as the market starts to uptick. But obviously, that period of rapid outperformance happens when alt season occurs. So that is what alt season is. That is where we currently are. TLDR, there's still a lot of headroom for growth. When will this happen? Well, I have a very simple indicator that I'm looking at. This is honestly the simplest way to quantify it for you. Alt season will not happen until Bitcoin dominance has a consistent period of downtrend. Right now, dominance is on the rise. It just made a new all-time high today. And you see the money noodle here, which is our indicator in the Discord. It's being adhered to in terms of upward structural momentum for Bitcoin. You can see it's been bouncing off the indicator. You can see it's continued to make higher highs and higher lows. And it's been in an uptrend channel. It actually just broke out of the channel. If you kind of want to draw it in roughly, you can assert, and I'm just doing a really rough drawing here, that it's actually starting to break out of this channel to the upside, which is absolutely insane. Like dominance is only going from strength to strength. The altcoin market will not rally until Bitcoin does this and actually breaks down. On this breakdown, right, and this will be a structural breakdown, so it'll be a lower low and it will be a break of this noodle indicator. That's when dominance can go from 60% to 50%. And it's on this wick, which can play out over a matter of months and weeks, that Bitcoin really outperforms in the market. So the answer is altcoin season will happen when dominance breaks down. Now, I spoke to Doc on yesterday's show, and his theory is that until proven otherwise, dominance will keep going up, maybe to 64% until the end of the year. So you might see something like this. And then he thinks momentum is going to start to shift. When you get that breakdown, that's when you'll see altcoins really outperform. And if you look at the past cycles, that's what's happened. It's basically been the way that alt cycles basically come about, right? So look at 2021, for example. Look at what happened here. This is exactly what I'm talking about. So you have the uptrend on dominance. You had a bit of a fake out. You had a squeeze to the upside. Dominance hit 73%. And then you had the breakdown. And it was on this breakdown, which occurred in February 2021, that you had this multi-month leg of altcoins outperforming. So we are looking for this breakdown that replicated in this cycle is what the altcoin season indicator is going to be. So it's going to happen at some point. I think it's going to happen potentially in Q1. We're already seeing altcoins perform well, but Bitcoin is still king. And the thing is, right, at this stage in the cycle, Bitcoin outperforming is actually a really healthy thing for the altcoin market. You need a healthy Bitcoin to set the stage for a sustainable and a bigger altcoin run. Why? Because liquidity capitalizes in Bitcoin, then it moves down the risk curve, because once Bitcoin hits 100K, 120K, 130K, 140, let's say even 150K, retail feels like they've missed the Bitcoin boat. And it's going to be in the news. It's going to be everywhere, right? Everyone's going to be talking about Bitcoin and crypto. So they're going to go into the more speculative playgrounds. They're going to go into the meme coins. They're going to go into the AI coins and all the alts. That only happens, I think, in true alt season fashion until Bitcoin breaks 100K, because this is really just the warm up, which means Bitcoin can keep going higher. We still need it to push 100. We still need it to maintain price discovery, which it is. So everything's healthy right now. It looks great. And that alt season is going to happen once Bitcoin really reaches mass exposure. And then you're going to see Bitcoin whales moving down the risk curve and people that are profitable on their Bitcoin trades, but also that new speculative capital feeling like they've missed Bitcoin and jumping into alts, which creates that shift. And if you look at Ben Cowan, who's another analyst who I respect, he's been spot on regarding Bitcoin dominance this cycle. He basically asserts that if the same pattern repeats from 2020 and 2021, then you probably expect a shift into altcoins in early 2025, because last cycle, Bitcoin continued to outperform towards the end of 2020, which was the halving year. This year, 2024, is a halving year. Alts finally took the spotlight, as you saw in the dominance chart that I showed you, in January and February 2021. So if you extrapolate that data, you're looking at that happening in Q1, which gives you a couple months basically to prepare for that eventuality. And just like the altcoin season index, the speculation index is also super low. It's at 21%. Last cycle, in 2021, we hit 90% at the altcoin season peak. So we still have another 70% to grow in the speculation index, which is an index that is measured by the percentage of altcoins with 90-day returns greater than Bitcoin. Only 21% of the market is outperforming Bitcoin right now. At some point, that will shift, and that's when you get a big alt season. And on the topic of alt season, I think it's going to be really explosive because we've barely moved. I mean, if you look at the performance from the bottom of the money noodle to where we currently are, that's a 25% gain. Even a breakout of this range to previous altcoin market cap all-time high, which is around $1 trillion, takes us up 46%. So that's double what we've currently moved. And I expect that this cycle, because there's more liquidity and Bitcoin is much higher, you'll see a stronger wealth effect and speculative effect into alts, which probably means your target can be between 1.5 to 2 trillion. I'm conservative. I've seen people saying 3 trillion. Even at 1.5 trillion, that's 92%. Guys, we've been making 2, 3, 4 X's on some coins in the last 20% move. What happens if we go up 90%? Like, we're literally going to 10x our portfolios. Now, I'm not saying that's a given, right? That's definitely not a given. My first target is previous all-time high. That is my first realistic target, but I'm just giving you an idea for how much upside is left. And it's important perspective because I'm seeing a lot of people saying, oh, you've missed the altcoin run, it's too late. Yes, you have to be careful with your entries at this point in the cycle. Yes, you should be aiming to buy dips. Yes, implement risk management. If you want more tips on risk management, watch yesterday's video. Especially the second half of the video, I go through each altcoin and I look at, how I would enter a coin like Tau, Spectral, how I would enter a coin like, what else did I speak about? Some of the AI coins, Solana, Phantom, Aptos. I went through my actual entry plans for those coins using the money noodle indicator and how I would manage risk, also lining that up with Confluence on the horizontal support and resistance levels. But the TLDR is you need to be strict with risk management, but there is a lot more upside still from a macro perspective for altcoins this cycle. And if you do look at others, BTC as well, in line with Bitcoin dominance, it's making almost lower lows. It has started to bounce a little bit, but it hasn't flipped the noodle. So you're not in a bullish altcoin market environment. Others, by the way, is the altcoin index excluding the top 10. And this is charted against Bitcoin to give you a feel for its relative performance. And basically, Bitcoin is still the king. It's still outperforming. So once you start to see this flip of this level and this uptrend for alts, that's when you can start to look at that alt season occurring. And even this scribble has that happening in Q1 to Q2 next year. So that is my general feeling on alts. And until then, it's a game of accumulating on dips, liquidation cascades, and positioning in quality alts that you have conviction in. That is the important point that I want to make. You should only be buying now the coins that you have real conviction in, because there are going to be shakeouts, there are going to be dips. It's not going to be easy to hold until the end of the cycle, right? It seems easy now because everything's going up. It won't be easy. So make it easier on yourself by only holding coins that you actually have conviction in and fundamentally believe in. I might speak about 30 coins on the channel, right? You don't have to buy every coin. Do some more research. Take what I say with a grain of salt. Do some more research. Work out if you're also bullish and position accordingly. Create a basket of 10 to 15 assets, not a huge portfolio. Last cycle, I was over diversified. That's one thing that really wrecked me. Create a portfolio of 10 to 15 assets that you have high conviction in. Build them up on dips, implement risk management for each coin based on technicals, and you're going to be in a much better position to do really well this cycle because you're not going to be holding on to stuff that you just jeet out of every time the market moves because you don't have real conviction. Some of the sectors I have a lot of conviction in, as I discussed yesterday: AI, meme coins, infra, DeFi, so RWA coins. These are the types of narratives I think are going to perform really well. Narrative is king in this cycle and in every cycle because it's an attention economy, and where attention goes, liquidity flows. So price is going to follow attention and mindshare. And I believe meme coins have pretty much the strongest bull case in the market alongside AI coins. And that's because they have such strong attention and we've seen it replicated in the price action. That's why I think for the remainder of the cycle, those are some of my really high upside bets. And whenever I add a new coin from either of these sectors, I'm going to share it in my alpha channel first. For example, as I said here, I found a new meme that I'm going to be talking about within the next probably 24 hours. So if you do join the Mars High Club today, you're going to get access to the early alpha on that meme. And I think it's going to do really, really, really well. I think it's going to get big exchange listing soon and is really undervalued based on market cap. So link in the description below. That alone probably pays for your monthly membership if the trade pans out. Obviously, I can't guarantee that you're going to make money on every single trade, but we have a good track record. And I don't really need to say it anymore. Come and see for yourself if you want to be a part of that community. Hope you enjoyed this video. Subscribe if you still haven't subscribed after watching the whole video. If you're still here now, you're a real one. I respect your loyalty and support this cycle. We're going to absolutely smash it together. Have a lovely rest of your day. I'll see you later today for my second video of the day. Peace out.